My restored one, have you ever considered what happens to a locked door when the one who holds every key decides to walk toward it? That is exactly what I am doing right now. Not someday. Not when your life looks cleaner, or your faith feels stronger, or your circumstances arrange themselves into something that looks more like what you imagined a blessed life should look like. Right now, in this very moment, as these words reach the deepest part of you, I am moving toward every door that has been locked against you, every opportunity that seemed sealed, every relationship that felt frozen in impossibility, every dream you quietly buried because it hurt too much to keep hoping, every area of your life where a heaviness has settled like a fog that refused to lift no matter how many prayers you sent upward, no matter how many mornings you rose and decided once again to believe. That heaviness was not natural. It was not something you brought on yourself through ordinary human weakness. What you have been carrying is something that was placed on your life without your permission, a weight that was never yours to carry, a door that was closed by something other than my hand. And I need you to understand something clearly, something that changes the entire framework through which you have been interpreting your life. I never designed your story to end at a locked door. Every door I close for a reason, and that reason always serves your good. But when something other than my purpose closes a door over your life, I have something to say about that. I have come to say it today. There is a word in the ancient language of my people that means something far more forceful than the English word remove. It means to tear out by the roots, to extract completely, leaving nothing behind, not to trim back what was growing in the wrong direction, not to prune it until it is manageable, to reach into the soil of a life and pull out, completely and permanently, what was never supposed to be planted there in the first place. This is what I am doing in your life today. I am not making adjustments. I am not negotiating with what has been working against you. I am tearing out by the roots every curse, every assignment, every pattern of heaviness, every generational weight, every spoken word from someone who had no authority to determine your future, every agreement you made in a dark season that opened a door you never meant to open, every chain that was wrapped around your potential by hands that were never mine. All of it. Every root. Every thread that connected your life to something that was never part of my original design for you. And the moment a root is removed, something remarkable becomes possible. The ground that was occupied by what should not have been there becomes available for what should. Seeds that could not grow in soil that was choked begin to break open. Growth that was stunted by the presence of something competing for the same nourishment of your life begins to rise. You will feel the difference, not all at once, but progressively, the way the brightening of a new dawn makes itself known, not in a single dramatic announcement, but in a gradual warming, a series of small evidences that something has fundamentally changed in the conditions of your world. The light is already changing. I want to take you back before I take you forward, because there is something in your history that needs to be reframed before you can fully receive what I am releasing over your life today. You have carried a narrative about your own story that contains some truth but misses the larger frame entirely. In that narrative, certain closed doors are evidence of your deficiency. Certain long seasons of waiting are proof that something is fundamentally wrong, either with you or with my faithfulness to you. Certain patterns that have repeated through your life, the same kind of loss arriving from different directions, the same category of struggle in an area that other people seem to navigate with ease. These patterns have become, in the story you tell yourself, evidence of a verdict about your life that you never officially agreed to, but somehow accepted anyway. Let me dismantle that narrative piece by piece, because you cannot walk into what I am opening for you while still carrying the weight of a false conclusion about what your past meant. Think back to the first time something closed before you were ready, before you had developed the capacity to interpret disappointment through the lens of faith. You were younger, your understanding was smaller, your framework for suffering was undeveloped, and the door closed. And in that moment, something happened inside you that was more significant than the closed door itself. A story began to form, a belief about how the world operated toward you specifically. Whether you could name it at the time or not, a conclusion lodged itself in some deep interior room of your soul, that things do not work out for people like you, that the good things, the open doors, the unexpected grace, the abundance, these were for other people, people with different histories, different beginnings, different amounts of whatever it was that apparently made the difference between those whose prayers got answered and those who kept praying and kept waiting. That belief became a filter, and everything that has happened since has been interpreted through that filter, which means that even genuinely good things in your life, even real open doors and real answered prayers, have been minimized or explained away or held at a slight emotional distance because some part of you was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Some part of you has been braced against hope for so long that it became almost indistinguishable from realism. You told yourself you were simply being practical, that you had learned not to set yourself up for disappointment. But what you were actually doing, without knowing it, was agreeing with a conclusion about your life that I never drew. I never concluded that you were someone things would not work out for. That was never my assessment of your story. Not then, not now, not at any point between then and now. Every door that closed did not close, because I had finally looked at you carefully enough to decide you did not qualify for what was behind it. Every season of waiting was not a sentence handed down from a throne of divine disappointment. Every repeated pattern of struggle in the same area of your life was not evidence of a curse that I had either sent or decided to allow as permanent. The conclusions you drew from your own history are not the same conclusions I drew, and today I am asking you to set down the narrative you have been carrying and pick up the one I have been writing. Here is the narrative I have been writing. You are a person I made with extraordinary intentionality. Your specific combination of gifts, sensitivities, capacities, and experiences was not assembled at random. Every element of who you are was chosen. The family you were born into, the early experiences that shaped you in ways both beautiful and painful, the particular texture of your personality, and the way it processes the world, the things that break your heart, and the things that fill it with something like wonder. None of it was accidental. I was building someone specific, someone with a specific function in the larger story of my purposes on this earth, and the building required every piece of the material that your life has provided, including the painful pieces, because the structure I was building could not be as strong without them, and the adversary recognized who I was building long before you did. This is the context for everything you have been through that seemed simply unfair. The opposition was not random. The patterns were not natural consequences of ordinary human weakness cycling through a neutral universe. The doors that closed over areas of your life where you longed for them to open, the resistance you encountered when you tried to move in certain directions that felt genuinely right, the sense of invisible weight pressing down specifically on the places where I had placed my most significant promises over your life. These things had a source, not a source with ultimate power, not a source with authority over your destiny or permission to write the final chapter of your story, but a source with an agenda, and that agenda was aimed at someone specific. The reason you have been targeted is not because of your weakness. It is because of your significance. This sounds like the kind of thing someone says to make you feel better when the truth is insufficient. I understand why you might receive it that way, but I am not telling you this to inflate your sense of importance at the expense of accuracy. I am telling you because it is the accurate account of what has been happening in the unseen dimensions of your life. The enemy does not spend concentrated, strategic effort on lives that have no significant impact in the plan of my kingdom. He invests in opposition where the return justifies the investment. And the fact that there has been concentrated, strategic opposition against specific areas of your life should tell you something very important about what I was building in those areas and what I intend to release through those areas once the opposition has been addressed. What was planned for your destruction had my purposes as its actual target. But here is what the enemy always miscalculates. He is a created being, working with limited information and limited authority. He can study patterns, he can read history, he can understand something about human psychology and spiritual dynamics, but he cannot fully account for the nature of what he is actually dealing with when he deals with someone who belongs to me. Because the person who belongs to me carries something that does not follow the rules he has learned to work with. The person who belongs to me carries the capacity to be transformed by the very things that were designed to destroy them. The wound becomes the credential. The loss becomes the foundation of a compassion that can reach people the undamaged cannot reach. The very area where the opposition was most concentrated becomes, in my hands, the area of greatest fruitfulness. This is the reversal I am executing in your life. Not eventually. Already in motion. The tearing out of roots is happening simultaneously with the planting of what belongs in that ground. As the weight of what was never meant for you is being removed, the capacity for what I always intended is expanding. You will see this in practical ways in the days ahead. Areas where you have felt consistently blocked will begin to yield. Relationships where there was a specific pattern of difficulty will shift in ways that surprise you, not because the other person changed dramatically, but because something that was creating interference in the space between you has been removed. Opportunities that seemed to disappear before they could be grasped will return in new forms, better forms, forms that fit the version of you that exists after this season of clearing, rather than the version who would have received them before this clearing was done. What I am opening for you is not the same door that was closed. What comes through now is better. Think of light. Think of the way it works when something has been blocking it for a long time. When you remove what was blocking the light, it is not the same situation with a minor improvement. The entire atmosphere of the space changes. The warmth arrives. The colors that were indistinct in the dim become vivid. Things that were hidden in shadow become visible. Details emerge that the darkness made impossible to see. And the light, once it enters, does not simply illuminate what is already there. It enables growth. Things that could not happen in the dark begin happening in the light, not because you force them to happen, but simply because the conditions that make them possible are now present. This is the light I am bringing into your life. Your scars are not your story. They are your proof. Every mark the darkness left on you is evidence not of darkness having ultimate power, but of you having survived every encounter with it while still carrying the flame of faith inside you. The flame was often small. There were seasons when it seemed like it might go out entirely, when the wind of consecutive disappointments pressed against it with such persistence that you covered it with your hands just to keep it alive, just to preserve the smallest ember of continued belief. And I saw you do that. I watched you protect that flame in seasons when everything around you was pressing against it from every direction. That flame did not go out. And because it did not go out, everything I have stored for this season of your life is now accessible. the provision that has been accumulating while you waited, the opened doors of opportunity that have been positioned and repositioned until the season was right, the relationships of divine alignment that have been prepared for this exact point in your journey, the breakthroughs in areas where you have been pushing against what felt like an immovable wall, not because the wall was genuinely immovable, but because the timing had not yet arrived. Right now, the timing has arrived. I want to speak with you about the specific character of what has been holding certain areas of your story closed, because I do not want you to attribute to ordinary circumstance what has a spiritual source. Some of what you have been experiencing in the area of provision and opportunity is the direct result of something that was spoken over you or your family line in a moment when darkness was given permission to make a claim. These are not abstract theological concepts. They are practical realities with practical consequences. A word spoken with authority in the wrong direction has weight. It lands somewhere. It affects conditions in ways that ordinary human effort cannot fully counter, no matter how hard you work, no matter how faithfully you apply yourself. This is why there are seasons where everything you do seems to produce less than it should, where the effort exceeds the return by a margin that makes no logical sense, where other people with similar capabilities in similar circumstances seem to advance while you remain in the same position. Disproportionate difficulty like that has a source, and the source is being addressed. I am the one addressing it. I am not asking you to speak the right words in the right formula, or to perform a precise spiritual procedure that activates some mechanism of deliverance. I am the deliverer. This is my activity, not your performance. What I am asking of you in this moment is simpler and more intimate than a formula. I am asking for your trust, the kind of trust that says, I believe you are doing what you said you were doing, even though I cannot yet see it clearly from where I stand. The kind that says, I release my grip on what I have been holding with my own hands, the control I have tried to exercise over my own liberation, the effort to manage my own deliverance. And I let you carry this because you said you would. That trust is the soil into which what I am planting needs to go. Consider the family line from which you come. Think about what you know of the people who came before you, their struggles, the particular categories of difficulty that showed up in their lives with a regularity that goes beyond coincidence, the specific areas where it seemed like something was always working against them, where the best efforts never quite produced what was hoped, where certain blessings seemed perpetually just beyond reach. Some of those patterns arrived in your life as something so familiar, you never questioned whether they were inherited or simply the nature of how life works. They felt like the furniture of your world, not like something placed there by something external. Generational inheritance is real. The things that are passed down through family lines are not limited to physical traits and personality tendencies. Agreements made by people who came before you. Agreements with fear, with lack, with bitterness, with rejection, with cycles of broken trust. These agreements left doors open in your family's spiritual history that were never properly closed. Things that should have been sealed were left accessible. And when you were born into that family line, you were born into conditions that already contained those open doors, already carried those unaddressed agreements, already had the particular spiritual architecture that those earlier experiences had created. You did not create those conditions, but you inherited them, and you have been carrying their weight as though it were simply the natural condition of your particular life. When the same area of struggle that exhausted your parents exhausted you, when the same category of loss that marked your grandparents marked you, when the pattern repeated itself with enough consistency that it began to feel like simply the way your family's life works, you absorbed it as truth rather than as something that was placed over you without authorization. I am pulling that authorization out by the roots. The blood of my Son settled every debt. Every claim that darkness thought it had over any life that received what his sacrifice provided has been fully addressed. There is nothing owed. There is no legitimate ground or any generational curse to stand on in the life of someone who belongs to me. The claim was satisfied. The debt was paid. The chain was legally broken at the cross, and what has been operating since then has been operating on inertia and on the permission of unchallenged old agreements, not on any rightful authority. I am challenging every old agreement today. In your life, in your family line, in every area where something has been operating as though it had permission when permission was revoked the moment you came into my family. I am reaching into the deep places, the places you cannot see and would not know how to address even if you could see them. And I am pulling out what was planted by hands that were never mine. The roots will not grow back. What I remove completely. The authority I exercise over what has been oppressing you is not partial or provisional. It is complete. It is the authority of the one who made you and who purchased your freedom at the highest possible price. Nothing can override this authority. Nothing. And as each root comes out, something remarkable happens in the ecology of your life. The resources that were being consumed by what was not supposed to be there are suddenly available for what is. The strength that was being drained by fighting what should not have needed fighting is freed for building what I intended. The attention that was being captured by managing consequences of oppression is released to focus on receiving what I have been storing for this season. Your life begins to function the way it was designed to function, and the efficiency of it, the sense of things flowing rather than constantly grinding against resistance, will be one of the first evidences you notice that the clearing has happened. You will notice it, probably before you fully understand it. There is a specific thing I want to speak to you about now, something that is tied directly to this theme of roots being torn out and doors being open. It has to do with provision, with the supply of what your life requires, with the specific and particular anxiety that attaches itself to the question of whether what you need will be there when you need it. You have lived in a relationship with scarcity for a long time, not always in the sense of genuine material lack, though for some of you that has also been true, but in the deeper sense of a background anxiety about sufficiency, a low-level hum of concern about whether what you have will be enough, whether what you need will arrive, whether the numbers will work, whether the resources will match the requirements. This anxiety has been so constant that you may have normalized it, may have accepted it as simply the responsible, realistic orientation of a person who takes seriously the demands of their life. But scarcity as a posture, as a background orientation, as the default lens through which you process your life, this was never my design for my children. I am a father whose resources are unlimited, whose storehouse is never empty, who does not look at your needs and then look at the available supply and calculate whether there is enough. There is always enough. The question has never been about the availability of supply. It has been about the clearing of what was blocking the supply from reaching you. The blockage is what I am removing. When the roots of what was planted without authorization come out, the channels of provision that were being choked begin to flow. This is not abstract spirituality. This has practical consequences in your actual material life. The opportunities that were being systematically redirected away from you begin to find you. The favor that was being intercepted before it could land begins to reach its destination. The doors that were closed against your advance in the areas of provision and career and material well-being begin to open, because the thing that was holding them closed has been addressed at its source. I want you to hold your hands open. This is not a metaphor. It is a posture. A person whose hands are tightly closed, whether from habit or from a learned defensiveness that developed after too many times of reaching and not receiving, cannot receive what is released into them. The opening of your hands is not something I force. It is something I invite. It is the physical expression of the internal choice to stop bracing and start receiving, to stop protecting yourself from the disappointment of hope, and to let hope stand at its full height. Open your hands. I want to speak now about the doors themselves. Not the doors in the abstract, but the specific doors in your specific life. The ones you know the names of. The opportunity you applied for and did not receive. The relationship you invested in that did not return what you gave. The area of your career where you have consistently encountered a ceiling that should not be there, given your gifts and your diligence. The financial door that every time you approached it, something intervened, and the opening never fully happened. The door of healing in your body that you have knocked on with prayer after prayer, with faith extended again and again, with persistence that has sometimes felt close to breaking. I know which doors you are thinking of right now. I know them by name. I know how long they have been sealed. I know every time you approached them and what it cost you when they did not open. I know the prayers that preceded each approach. I know the hope that was carefully assembled before each attempt, and what happened to that hope when the attempt did not produce what you had trusted me for. I know the careful way you have handled hope since then, the reduced size you have kept it to protect yourself from the full weight of repeated disappointment. I am asking you to let the hope grow back to its proper size, because what I am doing at the door of provision in your life is comprehensive. I am not nudging it slightly ajar. I am removing what held it closed and opening it fully. The supply that comes through an open door is not the cautious trickle of a door that is slightly ajar. It is the full, generous flow of a door that stands open because the thing that held it shut is gone. I am releasing over your life a provision that matches the design I had in mind for you from before you were formed, not the reduced provision of a life that has been operating under oppression, not the diminished flow of a supply that was being systematically intercepted before it could reach you, but the full provision of what I intended when I imagined your life and decided what it should contain. This is what abundance looks like when it comes through an open door. I want to speak about your family, the people connected to you by love and by blood, and by the covenant that my design for family represents. The weight you have been carrying has not been carried by you alone. It has been in the air of your home. It has been present in the emotional climate of your most intimate relationships. The people who love you have felt it too, even if they could not name it, even if the most they could say was that something in the household felt heavy. Something in the dynamic between people who should be flourishing felt more strained than it should. Clearing like this is not limited to the boundaries of your individual experience. It moves through the connections of love. What is released over you flows into the space you share with those you love. When weight lifts from your story, a different atmosphere comes into your home. The roots being torn out of your experience are roots that were affecting not just you, but the entire ecosystem of your family. When they come out, the whole ecosystem begins to breathe more easily. Watch for changes in the people around you that correspond to what I am doing in you. Not just changes that you have worked to produce by changing your behavior or your communication or the effort you bring to your relationships, though those things matter. Watch for changes that seem to come from somewhere else, changes in the relational climate that arrive without an obvious cause, a thawing where there was frost, an ease where there was strain, an openness where there was guardedness. These will be the signs that the clearing is extending into the spaces your love inhabits. Your household is being consecrated. The clearing of what was not supposed to be there is simultaneously an entering of what should be. My presence in a space that has been cleared is not a passive hovering. It is an active filling. the warmth of my presence, the peace that exceeds understanding, the safety that comes from being under the covering of the one who loves without condition and who guards without ceasing. These are moving into the rooms of your home as what was occupying them illegitimately is being removed. Let my presence fill every room. There is also something I want to say about the people in your life who have spoken things over you that were not from me. Words that arrived in vulnerable moments and lodged in places inside you that were not meant to hold them. Opinions delivered as verdicts. Assessments from people who did not have the full picture of who you are or what I had designed you for. Criticisms that arrived with enough authority to feel true, even when they contradicted what I had told you. Comparisons that positioned you unfavorably against someone else's gift or achievement in ways that made you question the value of your own. These words had weight. I am not dismissing that. Words spoken over a person's life do not evaporate because time passes. They take up residence. They influence the filter through which subsequent experience is interpreted. They become part of the internal voice that comments on your choices and your worth and your capacity. And some of the internal voice you have been listening to, the one that adds discouraging commentary to your attempts, that quickly catalogs your failures and hesitates over your gifts, that voice is not entirely yours. Some of it was given to you by people who should have spoken life but spoke something else. I am removing those words from the place where they have been operating. In their place, I am speaking something different. My words about you, the ones I spoke before anyone else had an opportunity to form an opinion of who you were or who you would become. My words, which have not changed regardless of anything anyone else has said, are these. You are wanted. You are known with a depth of intimacy that no human knowledge can match. You are gifted with precisely what the specific work I have in mind for you requires. You are not too much in the places where others said you were too much. And you are not too little in the places where others said you were not enough. You are exactly the person I made, carrying exactly what I placed in you, positioned exactly where I intend. And what I intend for your life has not been revised by any opinion to the contrary. My words over you stand. Everything else falls. Your scars are not your story. They are your proof. And the words that were spoken over you that were not from me, words of diminishment and comparison and inadequacy, these did not write your story either. My words wrote your story. They are still writing it. And the chapter that is being written right now, in this season of clearing and opening, is one that will be read very differently from the outside than the seasons that preceded it. From the outside, this season looked like limitation. From the inside, it felt like limitation. But from where I stand, it was preparation. Now, the preparation is complete. I want to talk to you now about what happens on the other side of a door that opens after a long season of it being sealed. Because opening does not feel, at first, exactly like what you expected opening to feel like. The first experiences of the air on the other side of a long sealed door are sometimes disorienting. Freedom, when you have lived under constraint for long enough, does not automatically feel safe. The capacity for receiving, when it has been contracted for a long time around the habit of not receiving, needs to expand before it can take in what is available. The posture of expectation, when it has been kept small to protect against disappointment, needs to stretch before it can hold what is being offered. This is normal. I am patient with the stretching. Do not interpret the initial disorientation as evidence that the opening did not really happen. Do not allow the strangeness of freedom, the unfamiliarity of provision arriving, the surprise of a door standing open where you had trained yourself to expect it to be closed, to make you doubt the reality of what I have done. The strangeness is not evidence against the opening. It is evidence of how long the closing was. It takes time to recalibrate a life that has been operating under specific conditions. Give yourself the grace of that recalibration. Give yourself permission to receive with some uncertainty in the receiving, to accept with some tentativeness in the acceptance, to hope with some caution in the hoping. The hope does not need to be fearless to be real. It needs to be present, and it is present. I can feel it in you even now, the small, careful reaching toward the possibility that this time might actually be different, that this word might correspond to something happening in the actual conditions of your life, rather than being a beautiful encouragement with no practical consequence. I want to speak directly to that reaching. I want to name what it is, which is faith in its most honest form, the faith that has been battered and is still reaching, the faith that has every reason to protect itself and is choosing instead to extend one more time toward the one who made the promise. This faith is precious to me, not the faith of the undamaged, not the faith of the person who has not yet faced enough disappointment to understand what trusting in the face of it costs. The faith that has been pressed and is still present is the faith that produced what you now carry, the depth, the compassion, the credibility of someone who knows from the inside what it means to hold on when holding on is not the easy choice. That faith is the instrument through which what I am releasing enters your life. Keep holding, even if the holding is tentative, even if the hands of your hope are not fully open yet, but are slightly less closed than they were. Every degree of opening is enough. Every increment of trust extended in my direction is met with a response from me that exceeds the measure of the extending. You give me a small yes, and I pour into it a large answer. You open your hands by a fraction, and I begin filling them beyond what the fraction should logically hold. This is not a formula. It is the nature of who I am. I am a father who meets his children's returning steps with running. The smallest movement in my direction calls forth from me the full measure of my love. And my love, when it is fully released into your life, looks like provision in the places of lack. It looks like warmth in the places that were cold. It looks like open doors in the places that were sealed. It looks like roots removed and ground cleared and seeds planted and growth beginning. It looks like the return of things that were taken, the restoration of what was damaged, the renewal of what was exhausted. This is what is happening. The blessing that is coming through the cleared ground and the open doors is not a reward for having survived the difficult season, though you have survived it, and I see how much it cost you. It is not compensation for what you endured, though what you endured was real, and its cost was real. It is the original design, delayed by what was working against it, and now released because what was working against it has been addressed. I am not improvising. I am not making the best of a situation I did not fully control. I am executing the original plan that was never canceled, only temporarily opposed. The plan is executing. Watch for the signs. The small signs first, because that is how openings typically begin, with small evidences that conditions have changed, with slight shifts in the atmosphere of the areas that were sealed, with quiet surprises that do not quite fit the pattern you had come to expect. Notice the small signs. Do not dismiss them. Do not explain them away as coincidence or luck or the natural variance of ordinary life. Receive them as the first drops of the rain that is coming, the first light of the dawn that is breaking, the first evidence that the door that was sealed has begun to open. The rain is coming, and it will come in amounts that correspond not to what you have been receiving in the contracted seasons, but to what I designed for your life before the contraction happened. The provision will exceed what you have normalized in the seasons of lack. The favor will extend further than what you have been accustomed to. The open doors will lead to spaces more suited to your actual gifts than the narrow spaces you have been navigating while the wider ones were sealed. Let your capacity expand to match what I am releasing. I have been storing it for this season. Every prayer you prayed that seemed to return unanswered was not stored in some vault of unheard requests. It was heard. It was held. It was waiting for the precise moment when the conditions were right for its full answer to be released. The accumulation of those prayers, the persistent reaching of a person who kept praying even through seasons of apparent silence, has created a reservoir. And what comes out of a reservoir when it is finally released is not a trickle. It is a flow that matches the depth of what accumulated. I am releasing the reservoir. Now I want to speak about how you will move through the open door, because the opening is only the beginning. The space on the other side of the door is waiting to be inhabited, and inhabiting it is an active thing, not a passive one. The clearing that has happened prepares the ground. The root removal creates the space. The opening of the door makes the access available. But walking through the door and establishing what belongs in the cleared ground is something I do with you, not for you, in a way that bypasses your participation. Your participation looks like this: taking steps toward what I am opening, even when the opening is not yet fully visible. Making decisions from a posture of expectation rather than from a posture of fear. Responding to the small evidences of shifting conditions with gratitude rather than with suspicious questioning of whether they will last. Bringing your gifts into the available space rather than waiting until the space feels fully safe and completely confirmed before offering what you carry. The space will fill as you inhabit it. This is always how the occupation of territory works in my kingdom. The ground is prepared, but the one who is meant to inhabit it must walk onto it. The cleared field must be walked into before it can be fully planted. The opened door must be entered before the room on the other side can be furnished. The invitation to step forward must be accepted by the one being invited, and the stepping forward, the walking onto the cleared ground, the entering through the opened door, this is the place where faith becomes visible. This is where the internal yes you have been giving me becomes an external movement in the direction I have been pointing. I am pointing toward the open door. Take a step, then another. The ground will hold. The door will not close while you are walking through it. The space on the other side was prepared for you, built to your dimensions, furnished with what your particular life and calling requires. You will not arrive there and find that it was meant for someone else, that the preparation was for a person more qualified or more spiritual or more consistent than you have managed to be through this difficult season. It was prepared for you, the you that exists right now, not the you that you wish you were, or the you that you imagine you need to be, before you can receive what I have prepared. You, right now, as you are, walking through the door with everything that has happened to you, and everything that has been removed from you, and every scar that is not your story, but is your proof. Walk through, and as you walk through, carry this understanding with you. What you are entering is not just the next chapter of your personal story. It is also the context in which your story intersects with other stories. The people who need what you carry are on the other side of the door. The specific quality of what you have to offer, the compassion forged in difficulty, the credibility earned through surviving what you survived while keeping the flame alive, the understanding that comes from having been held in hard seasons and knowing what that holding feels like, all of this is needed. Not by everyone, but by the people I have specifically positioned in your path. You are walking through a door so that others can receive what they need through you. This is the full scope of what the blessing is designed to accomplish. Not your prosperity alone, though your provision is genuinely and completely part of what I am releasing. Not your restoration alone, though your healing and renewal are genuinely and completely part of what I am doing. The blessing flows through you into the lives of others. The light that comes into a room illuminates more than just the person who opened the window. It illuminates everything the room contains. It makes it possible for everyone in the room to see. Your light is needed. Let it have its full height. Do not manage it back down to a modest level for the sake of appearing appropriately humble. Humility is not dimness. Humility is knowing that the light you carry was given, not generated, that its source is not in you, but flows through you from the one who is the source of all light. Holding that truth while letting the light have its full brightness is not arrogance. It is faithfulness. It is the stewardship of grace in the direction it was always intended to flow. I am opening doors for you so that light can travel through them, into spaces that have been waiting for exactly the particular quality of illumination that you carry. Into relationships that will be changed because you showed up carrying what you carry. Into situations that will be different because a person walking under this clearing entered them. The doors I am opening are not the end of the story. They are the beginning of the chapter where the story starts to matter to people beyond yourself. Prepare yourself for that chapter. The preparation is not dramatic. It is the quiet settling into what I am doing. It is the willingness to receive what is being released. It is the decision, made again every day as needed, to interpret your life through the lens of my faithfulness rather than through the accumulated weight of disappointment. It is the practice of holding your hands open rather than gripping tightly against the possibility of loss. It is the daily return to me, not as a ritual of religious maintenance, but as the genuine act of a person who knows where their strength comes from and who keeps coming back to the source. Come back to the source. Every day. Every time the old interpretive pattern tries to reassert itself. Every time the familiar heaviness tries to settle back into spaces that are being cleared. Every time the tentative hope retreats to a safer size. Come back to me, and I will bring you back to the truth of what is happening. Here is what is true. Something that held the light back has been removed. Ground that was choked is being cleared. Roots of what was never yours are being torn out, one by one, permanently. Seals that held closed what should have been opened are being broken. Every pattern of heaviness and sealed opportunity is being addressed at its source. And what follows the clearing, the warmth, the growth, the open doors, the provision, the restored joy, the expanded capacity, none of this is a distant future promise. It is the present reality of what I am releasing into your experience as you receive these words. Receive it, not with the careful, guarded receiving of someone who is still not entirely sure they believe this is for them, with the full-handed receiving of someone who knows their Father and trusts His voice and is finally, after a long and heavy season, willing to let something good arrive without shrinking it back to a safer size. This is for you. I made it for you. I have been preparing it for you through the very season that felt like I had forgotten you. The sealed doors were never my final statement. The heaviness was never my assessment of your worth. The generational weight was never my design for your inheritance. What I designed for you, what I have been moving toward releasing over you with every element of this season's preparation behind it, looks like this. Doors that fit you perfectly, opening to spaces that need exactly what you carry. Provision that arrives from directions you were not watching. Relationships that bring renewal rather than drain it. Healing in the places where the deepest wounds lived. A lightness in your spirit that feels, in the first moments of it, almost unfamiliar. because you have carried heaviness for so long that freedom feels new. A capacity to hope without immediately protecting the hope from itself. A future that begins from the clearing rather than from the weight. Every mark the darkness left on you is evidence of you having survived every encounter with it, while still carrying the flame of faith. What the enemy meant as a wound became a credential. What was designed to close you down became the very thing that opened a depth in you that comfort alone could never have produced. I want to spend time now with the practical texture of what it means to exist in the days following a root being torn out. Because I understand how the soul operates after long seasons of difficulty. The body adjusts to carrying weight in a way that makes the weight feel normal. And when the weight is finally removed, the adjustment takes time. The muscles that were braced do not immediately know how to relax. The posture that was shaped by the burden does not immediately straighten. The reflexes that developed to manage the weight, the constant scanning for new pressure, the habitual management of expectation, the practiced art of protecting yourself from the full weight of hope. These do not dissolve the moment the weight does. Give yourself permission to adjust. The new conditions of your life, the cleared ground, the opened doors, the provision that is beginning to flow. These will feel new before they feel familiar. Let them feel new. Let yourself be surprised by good things without immediately explaining them away. Let yourself receive favor without immediately cataloging reasons why it might not last. Let yourself hope at full height, which means at the height that genuinely corresponds to who I am and what I have said, without clipping the hope back to the size that protected you when hope felt dangerous. Adjustment takes exactly as long as it takes, and I am patient with every single day of it. There is something else I want to name. In the days following the kind of spiritual clearing that is happening in your life, you will sometimes encounter resistance from the familiar. Old patterns will try to reassert themselves not because they have any authority to do so, but because patterns that have run for a long time have momentum, and momentum does not stop the instant the source of the pattern is removed. A wheel that was spinning does not become stationary the moment the force driving it is gone. It slows, and the slowing takes time. During that time, you may feel the pull of the old interpretations, the old weight, the old posture of bracing against hope. You may find yourself interpreting a temporary delay in the clearing's visible effects as evidence that nothing has really changed. Do not accept that interpretation. What I have done in the spiritual dimensions of your life is done. The roots are out. The authorization of what was operating without my permission has been revoked. What you encounter in the natural dimension is the lag between the spiritual reality and its full manifestation in visible experience. This lag is normal. It is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of the gap between dimensions, a gap that will close, that has been closing, that is in the process of closing right now, even as you read these words. Watch for the closing of the gap. Watch for the visible world beginning to reflect what has already happened in the unseen. You will see it in small things first, in the slight shift in the atmosphere of your home, in the unexpected turn in a conversation that seemed like it would go one direction and went another, in the small provision that arrived from a direction you were not watching, in the incremental easing of attention that had been constant, in the first quiet evidence that the door that was sealed has begun to swing. These small evidences are the leading edge of the larger opening. Honor them. Thank me for them specifically. The practice of specific gratitude, of naming exactly what shifted and acknowledging exactly what it means, trains your awareness toward what I am doing rather than toward what has not yet fully materialized. It positions you as someone who sees the work in its early stages rather than someone who is still waiting for the work to begin. Work has begun. Receive every evidence of it as the proof it genuinely is. Now I want to talk to you about courage. Not the dramatic, theatrical courage of a person throwing themselves into obvious danger with no thought of cost. The quieter, more demanding courage of a person who keeps showing up in the direction they believe they have been called, in the face of the accumulated evidence of prior closed doors, in the face of the familiar voice that says, perhaps this time will be no different, in the face of the gap between the promise and the visible. This kind of courage does not announce itself. It simply moves. It takes the next step, even though the ground of the next step is not yet visible in full detail. It does what it knows to do, does it faithfully, and trusts the outcome to the one who is in charge of outcomes. This is the courage I am asking for right now. Not for you to throw yourself recklessly into every direction that presents itself. Not for you to override wisdom and discernment with sheer momentum. The courage I am asking for is the specific courage of saying yes to the door I am opening, of stepping into the cleared ground, of entering the space that has been prepared for you, of accepting at full value the reality of what I have done and what I am doing without shrinking it to a size that feels safer to believe. Say yes at the full size of the promise. I want you to understand something about the way blessings move. When they have been held and stored for a long time, as yours have been, they arrive with a weight of their own. Not a heavy weight, an abundant weight. The weight of what fills rather than what oppresses. The weight of water rushing into a dry place, of warmth filling a cold room, of provision settling into the spaces of lack, with a completeness that feels almost overwhelming after the long season of need. You may find yourself surprised by the completeness of what comes, by the fact that it addresses not just one area of the lack, but several simultaneously. By the way, what I release seems to know exactly which places needed it most and goes there first. By the efficiency of grace, which does not waste a drop and does not pass by a need it could reach. This is what the provision of a father looks like when it finally arrives unobstructed. Every channel is open. Roots that were blocking the flow are gone. Authorization of what was intercepting the blessing before it could land has been revoked. And what flows through cleared channels from a source that is unlimited into a soul that has been prepared to receive it is not a small thing. It is not a small thing at all. I also want to address the people in your life who will notice the change in your life before they understand it. The people who have seen you in the season of heaviness and who will see you in the season of clearing. Some of them will be glad for you, genuinely and immediately glad. And their gladness will be one of the unexpected gifts of this opening. But some will require time to adjust to the change, not because they do not love you, but because they are accustomed to the version of you that was carrying the weight, and versions of people are sometimes easier to maintain than to update. The familiar is comfortable even when the familiar thing being maintained is someone else's limitation. Be patient with the adjustment of others, and do not let anyone's difficulty adjusting to your new conditions be interpreted as evidence that the new conditions are somehow not real. The person who observed your closed door for long enough may be slow to believe the door is truly open, may keep expecting the closing, may keep preparing for the disappointment on your behalf that they expected and did not experience. This is not malice. It is the lag of human perception behind spiritual reality, the same lag you will experience within your own soul, simply externalized in the people around you who care about you. Some of what comes with the clearing will require you to carry it before others fully understand what happened. That is acceptable. You do not need the understanding of everyone around you for the reality of what I have done to be fully operational. My authorization does not require human confirmation. What has been cleared is cleared. What has been opened is open. What has been torn out by the roots will not regrow. This is not provisional on anyone's ability to see it or confirm it or celebrate it with you. It is done because I did it. And I do not undo what I have done in a life that trusted me. I want to close this time with you by speaking about the future. Not the vague, abstract future that exists as a category, but the specific, detailed future that I have been constructing in the spiritual dimension throughout the season that looked like nothing was happening. Because the season of apparent stillness was not stillness from my perspective. It was preparation. It was the backstage activity that precedes the opening of the curtain. The movement that happens before the audience can see anything. The work that must be done in order for the visible presentation to be coherent and complete. And the preparation is complete. What you are walking into is not the continuation of what you have been walking through. It is a new chapter. New in the sense that the conditions have changed. New in the sense that what was blocking has been removed. New in the sense that the doors that were sealed are standing open. New in the sense that the ground that was choked is cleared and ready for what belongs in it. The chapter that begins on the other side of this clearing is not simply the previous chapter with improvements. It is a genuinely new chapter, written from the beginning with the post-clearing conditions as its starting point. In this chapter, the provision is adequate, not barely adequate, generously adequate. The kind of adequate that has room left over for giving, for the stewarding of abundance, rather than the management of scarcity. In this chapter, the relationships that are meant to flourish have the space to do so, because the weight that was crowding out what should have been growing is gone. In this chapter, the gifts you carry have room to be expressed without the constant friction of opposition pressing against the expression. In this chapter, the prayers you have been praying with faithfulness and with persistence receive answers that correspond to what you ask, rather than to the reduced version your faith has sometimes quietly accepted in the place of the full answer. In this chapter, I am visible in your life in ways that will be impossible to attribute to coincidence. This visibility is part of what I intend, not for you to perform your blessing for anyone's observation, but for the reality of my presence and activity in your life to be so clear that the people around you cannot avoid the evidence, so that the testimony that emerges from this season of clearing and opening is credible, grounded in visible reality, impossible to dismiss as wishful thinking, so that when you speak of what I have done, you speak from a position of someone who has seen it and who carries the specific, detailed account of a person who was present for the opening of doors that had been sealed. This testimony is going to matter. I am not telling you that to inflate a sense of importance. I am telling you because it is true, and because preparing you to hold your testimony rather than minimize it is part of what this word is doing. Your story, the full story, including the sealed doors and the heavy seasons and the roots that have now been torn out and the doors that are now standing open, your story is not for private keeping. It is for the people who are still in the season you are coming out of. For the ones who are still carrying the weight you are setting down. For the ones whose hope is still at its smallest and most protected size, who need the specific and credible account of someone who was in that place and arrived at the other side. You are arriving at the other side, and what you carry from the arriving will serve others more than you can currently calculate. I want to speak one more time about the nature of what is being planted in the cleared ground, because the removal of roots is only half the activity. What fills the space matters as much as the clearing of the space. A cleared field is not yet a flourishing one. It is a prepared one. And in my economy, prepared ground does not sit empty for long. The moment the conditions are right, planting begins. And in the case of your life, the conditions are now right. What I am planting in the cleared ground of your life is not generic. It is not the standard issue blessing that one might expect in a general promise of restoration. It is specific to you, to your particular gifts and calling and history, and the particular shape of the impact your life is designed to have. The seeds going into your cleared ground were selected for your specific soil. They will produce fruit that matches the design I had for you from before you had a name. Fruit that corresponds to the particular work your hands were built to do and the particular difference your life was meant to make. You will recognize it when it grows. Not because it resembles what you had before, though in some areas there will be beautiful familiarity, but because it will fit in a way that things constrained by the old weight never fully fit. Like a plant finally growing in soil that matches its requirements, rather than fighting against conditions that were never right for it. The ease of the fit, that quality of things falling into alignment without the constant friction of forces working against the placement, that ease is itself a sign. It tells you that you are in ground that was designed for you rather than ground you forced your way into. This ease is coming. This alignment is coming. The evidence of the right fit is coming. And when it arrives, receive it without suspicion. The ease of grace is not a warning sign. It is not a too good to be true signal. It is what life looks like when the conditions are right, when the ground is cleared and the right seeds are planted, and the one who is sovereign over seasons sends the rain in the right measure at the right time. Life in those conditions does not have to fight its own environment. It does not exhaust itself pushing against what should not need to be pushed against. It grows because growing is what life does in good soil. And good soil is what I have prepared for your life. Receive the ease of it without guilt. You did not earn the clearing by enduring the weight. The clearing is grace. The good soil is gift. The seeds being planted are my investment in the design I had for you from the beginning. Your part is the trusting, the receiving, the stepping forward into what I am opening, the faithful use of what is placed in your hands as it arrives. Use what arrives faithfully. That faithfulness is the watering that what is planted needs. Not extraordinary faithfulness, not the faithfulness of someone who has finally achieved a level of spiritual development that qualifies them for the provision. The ordinary daily faithfulness of a person who shows up, who brings what they have, who does what is in front of them to do with the gifts available to them, who trusts the one who is responsible for the growth to handle the growth. This is the faithfulness that waters the seeds I am planting. You already have this faithfulness. You have been practicing it through the entire difficult season, showing up when showing up was hard, bringing what you had even when what you had felt insufficient for what was required, doing what was in front of you even when you could not see how it was contributing to anything larger, trusting the one responsible for the growth even when the evidence of growth was thin and the waiting was long. That practice prepared you for this season exactly as the clearing prepared the ground. The faithfulness you developed in the difficult season is the exact faithfulness needed to steward what is coming in the clearing season. You are not starting from zero. You are bringing the full accumulated development of a person who has been in formation for exactly this kind of work. Walk into the new chapter carrying everything you developed in the old one. Every piece of it has value. The patience that grew in the waiting, the compassion that grew in the suffering, the faith that grew in the pressing, the knowledge of my faithfulness that grew in the seasons where my faithfulness was less visible, but no less real, the rootedness in my word that grew in the seasons where my word was the only solid ground available, the ability to hold on through uncertainty that was forged in extended uncertainty. Every single element of what this season built in you has a place in what I am opening you into. Nothing was wasted, not a day of it, not a prayer of it, not a tear of it. Every single piece of what you walked through produced something in you that I intend to use. And the using of it, the seeing of how what looked like simply surviving turned out to be preparation. That seeing is coming. You will see it with enough clarity that the seeing will be one of the most significant gifts of the new chapter. Let the new chapter begin. I want to talk about something that happens in the heart when clearing takes place. Something beyond the practical dimensions of provision and opportunity that I have already described. There is a quality of interior restoration that accompanies the removal of what was not meant to be there, a healing that runs deeper than circumstances, that touches the part of you that makes meaning, that shapes how you experience being alive. When weight lifts from the soul, it is not only the circumstances of your life that feel different. You feel different. The world looks different. The people around you seem more reachable. The colors in ordinary things return to a vividness that the heaviness had muted, without you quite noticing when it happened. This interior restoration is real. It is not simply positive thinking following a motivating experience. It is the spiritual reality of what happens when a root is removed and the ground begins to breathe. The part of your soul that was occupied by what should not have been there begins to be occupied by what should, and the difference in the quality of presence is immediately recognizable. Peace feels less like an achievement and more like the natural state of a heart that is not fighting against something planted against it. Joy stops feeling like something you have to work to access and begins feeling like something that is simply available, present, ready to be experienced without the constant effort of forcing it past what was pressing it down. You will feel this. Perhaps you have already begun to feel traces of it in this very conversation. That loosening, that slight brightening, that tentative expansion in your chest that might dare to be called relief. That is the beginning of the interior restoration. Let it go all the way through you. Do not stop it at the surface. Let it go as deep as the weight went, into every room of your interior life that the heaviness visited, into every place where the darkness left a mark that told you less was possible than what I had promised. I am restoring every room, not just the rooms you present to the world, the functioning, managing, keeping it together rooms that you allow others to observe, the rooms no one else has access to, the room where your private assessments of yourself live, the ones you would never say aloud but that run constantly in the background of your self-understanding, the room where the deepest disappointments were stored after there was no place else to put them, the room where you kept the hopes you were embarrassed to admit to still carrying, the room where you filed the prayers that seemed to go unanswered, the ones you stopped asking me about out loud because the asking hurt too much when the visible answer did not arrive. I am going into every room. Running quietly in the background is a private accounting of who you are and whether you are enough, the one you rarely show to anyone, because its content is both too vulnerable and too unflattering to share. That accounting is being revised, not by you trying harder to think more positively about yourself, not by an exercise of self-improvement, by my direct declaration of who you are, entering the room where that accounting lives and setting it alongside what I have actually said about you, and the comparison making clear which document is the authoritative one. Mine is the authoritative one, and my document says this: you are a person I created on purpose, a person whose specific design was not an experiment that produced an unexpected result, but a deliberate and careful crafting that produced exactly what was intended. The gifts you carry are not accidental byproducts of the random assembly of your nature. They are strategic placements by the one who knew what work needed doing and built the person to do it. Your sensitivity, your particular way of seeing, your specific capacity for whatever it is that comes most naturally to you, These are not embarrassing eccentricities. They are credentials, evidence of the specific preparation I made in you for the specific work I had in mind. The room where your private assessment lives is getting a renovation. The old accounting is being replaced, and what you begin to experience as the new accounting takes hold is a settling into yourself that feels different from the restless reaching and constant qualifying you have been doing. A settling that does not require circumstances to confirm it, that does not depend on other people's opinions to sustain it. That rests on something more stable and more permanent than any of those things. My word, which does not change over your life, which I hold with the same care that I held it before any of the difficult seasons began. The care has not changed. The holding has not loosened. The word I spoke over your life at the beginning is the word I am speaking now, and it is the word I will be speaking when everything that seemed so significant in this season has receded into the story you tell from the other side. You were made for this, for the life that opens on the other side of the clearing, for the chapter that begins when the weight is gone and the doors are open and the ground is ready, and the seeds I prepared for your specific soil are planted and growing. You were made for the expression of your gifts in conditions that fit them. You were made for the provision of a father who holds unlimited resources and withholds nothing that serves the good of the child he loves. You were made for the relationships that carry life, for the purpose that gives your days a coherent direction, for the joy of a life that is moving in the direction it was designed to move. All of this is what the open door leads to. Walk through it with me. One last thing before I seal this word over your life. I want to address the question that is sitting quietly in the background of everything you have heard today. The question that does not dare to ask itself too loudly, but that is present nonetheless. The question is, why now? Why, after the long season of sealed doors and unrelenting wait, is this the moment of the opening? What changed? What made now the right time when before was not? I want to answer that question because I think the answer will matter to you not just for understanding what is happening now, but for how you hold what happens next. Nothing about this timing was arbitrary. It was not the result of some threshold of suffering finally being reached. It was not because you finally prayed the right prayer or finally achieved some level of faith that you had previously been lacking. What I have been building toward encompasses not just your individual story, but a larger arrangement of circumstances and relationships and open spaces that your step forward is designed to enter. When the door opens, corresponds exactly to when what I have prepared on the other side is fully in place and ready to receive you. These two moments, the opening and the readiness of what awaits, are not accidental. They correspond with perfect precision. This means that even the waiting, the extended waiting that felt so disproportionate to what you were waiting for, was purposeful, not cruel, not indifferent, not evidence of my forgetting or my delay in a pejorative sense. It was evidence of my attention to the full picture, which includes not just you and your readiness, but the readiness of the entire arrangement into which you are stepping. A key turns when the lock is ready, not just when the person holding the key is ready. I was preparing the lock while I was also preparing you, and when both were ready, the turning happened. It is happening now. You are ready. The lock is ready. The space on the other side has been prepared. Everything I needed to arrange before this opening could happen, the way it needed to happen, has been arranged. You could not see the arranging because it was happening in dimensions your natural perception does not reach. But the completion of the arranging is why this is the moment. This is why now. And knowing this, I hope, helps the waiting make a different kind of sense. Not a sense that makes it painless in retrospect, but a sense that locates it within a purposeful process rather than leaving it as simply a long and unexplained gap between promise and fulfillment. Nothing about that gap was empty. It was full of preparation. And preparation is precisely what makes what comes next as good as it is. Walk through it with me. Your scars are not your story. They are your proof. And this is the chapter where the proof begins to speak louder than everything that tried to write a different ending. I am walking toward your locked doors. I am walking toward them right now. Every key is in my hand, and I am opening every door that was never meant to stay closed. Amen. If these words reached a place inside you that has been waiting for exactly this kind of message, do not keep them to yourself. Share them with someone who is still carrying weight they were never meant to carry. Share them with the person whose hope has been reduced to the smallest possible size. Share them with anyone you know who is standing in front of a door that should have opened and has not yet. Type Amen in the comments and let this community of faith know that you received this blessing today. Every word written here was stored for someone specific, and perhaps you know exactly who needs to hear it next. Your sharing of this message is part of how I send what people need.